"He looks like your dead son," the millionaire's girlfriend said upon seeing a homeless child. What happened next will move you. Now, before we continue the story, please like this video, subscribe to help me reach 1,000 subscribers. Let's get to the story. The March sun beat down on the asphalt of Fifth Avenue when James Peterson stopped his black BMW at a red light. At 42, the successful lawyer had achieved everything he had ever dreamed of: an office on Wall Street, a penthouse in Manhattan, and a solid reputation in New York City's courtrooms. "Look, my love," whispered Stephanie, pointing to the passenger window. "Here comes another one." A skinny man with torn clothes and tired eyes approached the car. His hands trembled slightly as he tapped on the window, the sound echoing in the vehicle's air-conditioned interior. "Please, sir, could you spare some change for something to eat?" James didn't hesitate. He rolled down the window and handed him a $50 bill. The man's eyes lit up with a gratitude that cut to the soul. "God bless you, sir. Thank you so much." "James!" Stephanie exploded as the light turned green. $50? Have you lost your mind? He was just a hungry man, Steph. A hungry man who's going to buy a bottle of whiskey. She crossed her arms, her brown eyes shining with irritation. "You're so naive. These panhandlers are all the same. Opportunists." James accelerated down the avenue, the noise of New York City traffic filling the tense silence that had fallen over the car. Stephanie scrolled on her phone for a few minutes before turning to him again. "You know what? I'm going to prove to you that I'm right." "How so?" "A bet." Her eyes gleamed with determination. "Let's do a test." James frowned without taking his eyes off the heavy traffic. "What kind of test?" "Simple. You'll drop your wallet near a homeless person, and we'll see if they return it or steal it." "Stephanie, what is it? The truth?" She leaned toward her partner. "James, you give money to anyone who asks. Have you ever thought about what would happen if someone found out where you work, our home in Manhattan, our daughter's private school?" The argument hit James hard. They had been trying to have children for 3 years, and Stephanie always spoke as if they already had a family to protect. "Fine," he sighed, "but I don't want to hurt anyone." "You won't. We'll just test their honesty. If the person returns it, you can continue giving to whoever you want. If they don't," Stephanie smiled victoriously, "you'll stop being Santa Claus." James stopped at another light, near the Westfield World Trade Center. On the sidewalk, a thin boy was sitting on a cardboard box with a metal cup in front of him. He didn't look more than 10 years old. "That boy right there," Stephanie pointed, already taking out her phone to record. "Perfect for the test. What decision would change their lives forever?" Gabriel leaned his head against the cold wall of the commercial building, smelling the exhaust mixed with the food from nearby restaurants. His fingers recognized every texture of the sidewalk where he spent his days. The cracks in the cement, the obstacles left by pedestrians, the shape of his dented cup. At 10 years old, darkness was his constant companion. He was born that way, with a congenital cataract that completely clouded his vision. His dark glasses, cracked in several places, were a gift from a kind vendor in Times Square. "Excuse me," a male voice approached. Gabriel lifted his face, trying to identify the direction of the sound. Firm steps, expensive shoes on the asphalt, a subtle but refined perfume. Someone with money. "Good afternoon, sir," Gabriel replied politely, just as Grandma Lourdes had taught him before she passed away. James stopped in front of the boy, pretending to check his phone. With a calculated movement, he let the wallet slip from his pocket, falling with a muffled sound near Gabriel's feet. "Bye," James said, walking away quickly. Gabriel heard the strange noise, different from the usual street sounds. He reached out his hand and found a rectangular leather object. His fingers explored the surface. A wallet. Inside the BMW, Stephanie filmed everything with her phone, a satisfied smile on her lips. "Look at that," she whispered to James. "The show is about to begin." Gabriel held the wallet in his hands, feeling its weight. He knew he should shout, call out to the owner, but the street was loud, and the man had already moved away. He carefully opened the object and ran his fingers over the inside. "My God," Stephanie murmured, "he's going through the wallet." Papers, plastic cards, and cash. A lot of cash. Gabriel felt the bills between his fingers, mentally calculating. There were many. More money than he saw in months. For the first time in weeks, he could buy real food. Not just the leftovers he sometimes got from restaurants, but a complete meal. Maybe even medicine for the cough that had been bothering him for days. His stomach rumbled loudly, reminding him that he hadn't eaten anything substantial since the previous morning. Just a piece of bread a lady had given him at the subway station. See? Stephanie shook her phone. Didn't I tell you? He's counting the money. Gabriel closed his eyes behind his dark glasses. Grandma Lourdes's voice echoed in his memory. My dear grandson, the only thing no one can take from you is your honesty. Always be a good boy. Carefully, he closed the wallet and hid it under his shirt. Not to steal it, but to protect it. He needed to find the owner. James watched in the rearview mirror, his chest tight with a mix of curiosity and guilt. There, Stephanie said, putting her phone away. Mission accomplished. $50 for a lesson learned. It was $500, James corrected quietly. $500? Stephanie's eyes widened. James, are you crazy? What if he doesn't give it back? We'll wait and see. Gabriel remained sitting on the sidewalk, clutching the wallet to his chest. Tomorrow, when the city woke up less hectic, he would find a way to return it. He always did. What none of them imagined was that the wallet held more than money. It held the destiny of an entire family. Night fell over New York City like a heavy blanket, bringing a cold that made Gabriel huddle against the wall. The lights of the surrounding buildings twinkled like distant stars, invisible to his eyes, but present in the warmth they radiated. Gabriel held the wallet tightly as memories came flooding back. It always happened like this on cold nights. The past returned like waves crashing on the shore. 10 years ago, a baby cried alone among the debris of a Queens landfill. He didn't know how he had gotten there, or why he had been abandoned. His first memories were of the loving arms of Lourdes Santos, a recycler who found him among the waste. My little angel, she used to say, kissing his forehead. God brought you to me for a reason. Lourdes was 60 years old, with grey hair always tied in a bun and hands calloused from so much work. She lived in a small, wood-paneled house in a South Bronx neighborhood, where she raised Gabriel as if he were her own grandson. Grandma, why can't I see like everyone else? Gabriel would ask when he was 5. Sometimes, my child, God takes one thing away to give you something better. You hear things no one else hears. You sense smells that go unnoticed. Your heart sees more than many people's eyes. It was Lourdes who taught Gabriel how to move around, to recognize sounds and textures, to be independent despite his disability. She sewed clothes for extra money, and the nights were filled with the sound of the sewing machine mixed with the stories she told. Once upon a time, there was a very special boy, she would narrate, as Gabriel snuggled in her arms. He couldn't see the world with his eyes, but he could see the goodness in people's hearts. When Gabriel turned 8, Lourdes started coughing a lot. The cough progressed to constant fatigue, then to frequent trips to the health clinic. It's just a cold, my angel, she would lie, hiding the doctor's papers. But Gabriel could feel it. He felt it in the different smell of the house, in the way Lourdes' breathing became heavier at night, in the way her hands trembled when she caressed his face. Pneumonia took Lourdes on a Tuesday in winter. Gabriel woke up, and she simply didn't answer when he called. The neighbors called an ambulance, but it was too late. What now, boy? Asked Mrs. Rodriguez, a neighbor who barely spoke to them. Do you have any relatives? Gabriel shook his head. Lourdes was all he had. Then you'll have to go to a shelter. But Gabriel ran away before they could take him. He knew the stories about shelters. He heard the older children talk. He preferred the streets, where at least he was free. 2 years on the streets of New York City taught Gabriel lessons that no school could. It taught him to recognize the sound of kind people, to differentiate the footsteps of those with bad intentions, to find shelter on rainy nights. He learned where to get food. Restaurants in Greenwich Village sometimes gave leftovers. The early morning market in Times Square left fallen fruit, and employees at the McDonald's on Fifth Avenue would occasionally take pity on him. Hey, kid, some pedestrians would yell. Get out of here. Poor thing, others would whisper. So small. Gabriel learned to distinguish pity from anger and kindness from false piety. He developed a keen intuition about people, as if his blindness had opened other senses to compensate. Now, holding the gentleman's wallet who had passed by, Gabriel remembered Lourdes's words. Honesty is the only wealth no one can steal from you, my angel. In the darkness of the New York City night, the blind boy made a decision that would change not only his life, but that of an entire family. How could a simple wallet reveal long-buried secrets? The morning sun warmed Gabriel's face when he woke up at the entrance of a closed store. His fingers immediately sought the wallet, still hidden under his shirt. It was there, safe. He got up slowly, stretching his sore muscles from another night on the cold ground. Around him, the familiar noise of Times Square commerce starting another day, vendors opening shops, delivery trucks unloading goods, the hawkers' cries. Gabriel walked carefully to the stall of Old Man Joe, a fruit vendor who always treated him with respect. "Good morning, Old Man Joe." "Hey, Gabriel, how are you, boy?" The man's warm voice brought relief. "Want a banana? I have some ripe ones here." "Thank you very much, Old Man Joe, but I need a different favor today." Gabriel took the wallet from inside his shirt, feeling the man approach. "Wow, kid, where did you get this?" "A man dropped it near me yesterday. I need to return it, but I can't read the papers. Can you help me?" Old Man Joe took the wallet carefully, as if it were a sacred object. He opened it and whistled softly. "Kid, there's a lot of money in here." "I know. That's why I need to return it quickly." The fruit vendor examined the documents with growing admiration. "Look at this. James Edward Peterson, lawyer." He paused. "Gabriel, do you know there's $500 in here?" Gabriel's stomach rumbled in response, but his voice remained firm. "Yes, I know, but it's not mine. There's a business card here, an office on Wall Street. That's far from here, kid. Can you give me the address? I'll walk." Old Man Joe looked at Gabriel with a mixture of awe and pride. He knew many street kids who frequented the area, but he had never seen anything like this. "Wall Street, 1234, Suite 567, Metropolitan Building," he repeated slowly for Gabriel to memorize. "But Gabriel, it's a long way, and you'll have to cross the whole city. Are you sure?" "Yes, I am, Old Man Joe. Grandma Lourdes always said that honesty is the only thing no one can take from us." The fruit vendor felt his eyes well up. He took 2 bananas and a leftover piece of bread from his breakfast. "At least eat something before you go, kid. And be careful in traffic." Gabriel thanked him and began his journey. He knew the way, from Times Square to the subway, from there to the Wall Street station. He had made similar journeys while panhandling around the city. On the subway, people moved away from him. Some whispered comments he pretended not to hear. Others kinder asked if he needed help. Gabriel politely thanked them but continued on his determined path. "Next stop, Wall Street," the system announced. Gabriel got off and walked the streets of the financial heart of the city. The contrast was brutal, leaving the popular streets of the central area for the heart of American capitalism. Here, the cars were more expensive, the clothes more elegant, the pace more accelerated. He found the Metropolitan Building without much difficulty, a huge glass and steel building that rose toward the sky. Gabriel approached the main entrance, where a uniformed doorman immediately intercepted him. "Hey you, what are you doing here?" "Good morning, sir. I need to speak with Mr. James Peterson. I have something that belongs to him." The doorman looked Gabriel up and down, dirty clothes, disheveled hair, cracked dark glasses. "Of course you do." His voice was dripping with sarcasm. "And I'm the president. Get out of here before I call security." "Please, sir, I'm serious. He dropped his wallet yesterday and I came to return it." "Wallet?" The doorman laughed. "Let me see this wallet, then." Gabriel hesitated. Showing the wallet could be dangerous, but it was the only way to prove his honesty. What would happen when Gabriel finally managed to find James? The doorman snatched the wallet from Gabriel's hands with brutality, his eyes widening at the contents. "Where did you steal this, kid?" "I didn't steal it," Gabriel protested, his voice echoing in the marble lobby. "The lawyer dropped it yesterday and I came to return it." "You stole it and now you want to play the good guy?" The doorman squeezed Gabriel's arm tightly. "I'm calling the police." "What's all this noise?" A familiar voice cut through the discussion. James was coming down the elevator to go to lunch when he heard the commotion. He immediately recognized the boy from the day before, but had a hard time believing what he was seeing. "Mr. Peterson!" Gabriel turned in the direction of the voice. "Is that you? I brought your wallet." The doorman was holding Gabriel by the arm, the open wallet in his other hand. "Mr. Peterson, this kid was trying to pull a fast one on you. He showed up here with your wallet saying he found it." James approached slowly, studying Gabriel's face. The boy seemed even thinner than he remembered, and his dark glasses were broken, with tape holding the lenses together. "Let the boy go," James ordered. "But, sir, let him go, now." The doorman reluctantly obeyed. James knelt in front of Gabriel, getting down to his eye level. "What's your name?" "Gabriel, sir." "Gabriel, did you come to return my wallet?" "Yes, sir. You dropped it yesterday near where I stay. It took me a while to get here because I couldn't read the address. Old Man Joe from the market helped me." James took the wallet from the doorman's hands and checked the contents. Everything was there. The $500, the cards, the documents. "Gabriel," James paused, his voice choked up. "How long have you been without eating?" "I ate a banana and a piece of bread this morning, which Old Man Joe gave me." "Before that?" Gabriel lowered his head, embarrassed. The day before yesterday I got some cookies at the McDonald's on Fifth Avenue. James felt his chest tighten. He looked at the doorman, who now looked ashamed. Wilson, I'm sorry for the confusion. Gabriel extended his hand in the direction of the doorman's voice. I know you were just protecting the building. The doorman looked at the boy's outstretched hand, then at James, and finally shook Gabriel's hand. Sorry about that, kid. James watched the scene with growing emotion. In the elevator, Gabriel followed silently beside him, his hands recognizing the texture of the mirrored walls. Gabriel, can I ask you a question? Of course, sir. Why did you return the wallet? There was enough money for you to eat for months. Gabriel turned his face toward James, and even through the dark glasses, the lawyer felt the intensity of his gaze. Because it wasn't mine, sir. Grandma Lourdes always said that we only own what we earn with honesty. And who is Grandma Lourdes? She was the lady who raised me. She died 2 years ago. The elevator stopped on the 20th floor. James guided Gabriel to his office, where his secretary looked surprised at the two of them. Patricia, cancel my afternoon appointments, and please have someone get a snack for Gabriel. Gabriel sat in the chair offered to him, still holding his broken glasses tightly. Mr. Peterson, can I go now? I returned your wallet. Gabriel, these glasses, how did they break? The doorman downstairs dropped them when he grabbed me. James clenched his fists. He picked up the internal phone. Patricia, call the optician at the mall next door. I want the best protective glasses they have. Sir, you don't have to. Yes, I do. James placed a hand on Gabriel's shoulder. And you're not leaving yet. First, we're going to have lunch. At that moment, James made a decision that would change their lives forever. But he still didn't know that Stephanie was on her way to the office, and that the real revelation was just beginning. How would Stephanie react to seeing Gabriel again? Stephanie entered the office like a hurricane, her high heels echoing on the wooden floor. She stopped abruptly when she saw Gabriel sitting in the chair in front of James's desk, carefully chewing a sandwich. James, what is this? Steph, this is Gabriel, the boy who returned my wallet. What boy who returned? The words died in her throat when she recognized the face. No, it can't be. Gabriel stopped eating, turning his head in the direction of the female voice. There was something familiar in that tone, a tension he could feel in the air. Good afternoon, ma'am. Stephanie approached slowly, her eyes fixed on Gabriel's broken dark glasses. When she saw the eyes behind the cracked lenses, clouded, whitened by the cataract, her breath hitched. James, he's blind. Yes, Steph. Gabriel was born with a congenital cataract. But you didn't say... Yesterday you didn't say he was... James frowned, not understanding his wife's reaction. Stephanie seemed about to faint, holding onto the desk. Stephanie, are you okay? Gabriel felt the tension in the room increasing. He put the sandwich down on the plate and was on alert. Mr. Peterson, if the lady doesn't want me here... No, Gabriel, you stay. James looked at Stephanie with concern. Steph, what's going on? Stephanie couldn't take her eyes off Gabriel. The same clouded eyes she saw in nightmares 10 years ago. The same eyes her mother had described with horror on that fateful morning at the hospital. I need a glass of water. James ran to get water, leaving Stephanie and Gabriel alone for a few seconds. The silence was heavy, loaded with a tension that Gabriel couldn't understand. Ma'am? Gabriel asked gently. Are you not feeling well? The voice, sweet, polite, kind. Stephanie felt tears well up. It was impossible, but... Gabriel, how old are you? 10 years old, ma'am. And do you know where you were born? No, ma'am. Grandma Lourdes found me in a landfill when I was a baby. She said someone abandoned me there. Stephanie's legs gave way. She sat down heavily in the chair next to Gabriel, her hands trembling violently. James returned with the glass of water, finding his wife as pale as a sheet. Stephanie, what happened? James, her voice was just a whisper. We need to talk. Now, Gabriel, can you wait here for a minute? James guided Stephanie to the adjacent conference room. James, that boy... Stephanie couldn't stop trembling. That boy could be what, Stephanie? You're scaring me. Our son. James laughed, thinking it was some kind of bad joke. Stephanie, what are you saying? We've never had children. Yes, we did. The tears flowed freely down her face. 10 years ago, when we were dating, I got pregnant and my mother said the baby died during childbirth. What baby? Stephanie, you never told me this. Because I thought he was dead. My mother said he was born with severe problems and died, that it was better to forget. James sat down slowly, trying to process the information. And now you think Gabriel? He's 10 years old, James. Born blind. He was abandoned in a landfill. Stephanie grabbed her husband's arm. And he has the same eyes my mother described that morning. On the other side of the glass door, Gabriel waited patiently, unaware that his life was about to take a completely different turn. Stephanie, those are a lot of coincidences. Or no coincidence at all, James. What if my mother lied? What if she abandoned our son because he was born blind? The question hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. In the next room, Gabriel continued to wait, oblivious to the fact that he was at the center of a revelation that would shake the foundations of a family. But could Mrs. Martha really be capable of such cruelty? James and Stephanie returned to the office in silence, both struggling to process the possibility that hung between them. Gabriel remained in the same position, waiting patiently, his hands folded in his lap. "Gabriel," James began, his voice softer than ever, "we would like to help you. How about we buy you new glasses?" "Sir, I don't have the money to pay." "You don't need to pay anything." Stephanie approached, studying every feature of the boy's face. "It's a gift." At the Westfield World Trade Center Mall, Gabriel tried on his first professional protective glasses. The special lenses completely blocked out any residual light that might bother his sensitive eyes. "How are they?" the salesperson asked. "Very comfortable." Gabriel smiled, delicately touching the frame. "I've never had new glasses." Stephanie bit her lip to keep from crying. She watched Gabriel's every gesture, looking for signs, some confirmation of her suspicions. "Now let's go buy clothes," James announced. In Times Square, Gabriel tried on his first new clothes in years: jeans, t-shirts, comfortable sneakers, even new underwear. In the fitting room, Stephanie noticed a small birthmark on Gabriel's right arm. Her heart stopped. She had an identical mark in the same place. "Gabriel, have you always had that little mark on your arm?" "Yes, ma'am. Grandma Lourdes used to say it was my special little sign." Stephanie left the fitting room, her legs wobbly. James noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" "The birthmark. It's just like mine." She discreetly showed him, and James couldn't deny the similarity. "Steph, let's take it easy. It could be a coincidence." "How many coincidences are you going to need, James?" In the afternoon, they took Gabriel to lunch at the top of the Rock. The boy had never been to a restaurant of that caliber, and his natural politeness impressed even the most stoic waiter. "Could I have the simplest dish, please?" Gabriel asked. "I don't want to be a bother." "You can order whatever you want," Stephanie said, her voice choked up. Gabriel chose a lasagna, eating slowly, savoring every forkful as if it were the last meal of his life. "Gabriel," James began carefully, "tell us about Grandma Lourdes. She was the kindest person in the world." Gabriel's eyes lit up behind the new glasses. "She found me when I was a baby and raised me as if I were her own." "Did she tell you anything about your parents?" Gabriel shook his head. "Only that someone left me in a landfill and walked away. She said it didn't matter who they were because I was her child by heart." Stephanie had to get up from the table to keep from crying in front of Gabriel. In the restroom, she called her mother. "Mom, I need to talk to you. It's about that thing from 10 years ago." "Stephanie, we've already talked about this. It's better to forget." "Mom, what if he didn't die? What if you lied to me?" The silence on the other end of the line was eloquent. "Come to the house tonight." "Alone." "Mom, alone, Stephanie. There are things your husband can't know." The call was cut off. Stephanie returned to the table, her heart pounding. "Are you okay?" James asked. "Yes." She lied, stroking Gabriel's hair. "Everything's fine." That afternoon, they bought everything Gabriel needed: hygiene products, cough medicine, even a small radio for him to listen to music. Gabriel was overwhelmed with gratitude. "Why are you being so good to me?" he asked as they returned to the car. James and Stephanie exchanged glances. How could they explain to a child that he might be the son they thought they had lost? "Because you deserve it, Gabriel," Stephanie replied, kissing the boy's forehead. "You deserve everything good." That night they left Gabriel in a nearby hotel, safe and comfortable for the first time in years. But Stephanie knew that the conversation with her mother would reveal truths that would change everything. What secrets had Mrs. Martha hidden for all these years? The next morning, James insisted that Gabriel have a complete checkup at New York Presbyterian Hospital. The boy, still wearing his new clothes, walked alongside the couple through the corridors of the largest hospital complex in America. "I've never been in such a big hospital," Gabriel commented, hearing the echoes of their footsteps on the ceramic floor. "It's like a city inside here." Dr. Robert Mendez, a renowned ophthalmologist and a friend of James, received them in his office. At 50, the doctor had dedicated his career to restoring vision to people like Gabriel. "So this is young Gabriel." The doctor knelt in front of the boy. "Can I examine your eyes?" Of course, doctor, but I don't think it's possible. I was born this way. Let me be the judge of that. The examination lasted almost 2 hours. Dr. Robert used sophisticated equipment to map every millimeter of Gabriel's eyes, while James and Stephanie waited anxiously in the waiting room. The test results will be ready on Monday, the receptionist said, but the doctor wants to speak with you now. Back in the office, Dr. Robert was smiling like someone who had just discovered a treasure. Good news, he announced. Gabriel's cataract is operable. What do you mean? Stephanie held Gabriel's hand. Gabriel was born with a bilateral congenital cataract. Normally, when surgery isn't performed in the first few months of life, the eyes don't develop vision correctly. But Gabriel has something rare. The optic nerve is perfect, the lens can be replaced, and there's a real chance of visual recovery. Gabriel became very quiet, processing the information. Doctor, do you mean I can see? I can't guarantee 100%, but I believe so. Maybe not perfect vision, but enough for a normal life. Tears streamed down Stephanie's face. James had to sit down, too emotional to speak. Gabriel, Dr. Robert continued, it would be a surgery through the public healthcare system, free of charge. I can schedule it for next week if you want. I want to, Gabriel replied without hesitation. I've always dreamed of seeing the faces of the good people who helped me. Leaving the hospital, Stephanie couldn't stop looking at Gabriel. The possibility of him being her son grew with every passing minute, and the idea that he might be able to see moved and terrified her at the same time. Gabriel, are you afraid of the surgery? James asked. I'm afraid it won't work, Gabriel admitted. But I'm more afraid of not trying. Stephanie stopped in the middle of the sidewalk and hugged Gabriel tightly. The boy returned the hug, not understanding why this lady was crying so much. Why are you sad, Mom? I'm not sad, Gabriel. I'm happy, very happy. That afternoon they bought Braille books for Gabriel, but he confessed that he didn't know how to read. Grandma Lourdes tried to teach me, but she didn't really know Braille. We'll fix that too, James promised. At the hotel, Gabriel explored the room with a childlike curiosity. The hot shower, the soft bed, the television he had never experienced alone. It was like a dream. Mr. Peterson, can I ask you a question? Of course. Why are you taking care of me? Not that I don't like it, but no one has ever been so good to me except Grandma Lourdes. James exchanged a look with Stephanie. How could they explain that Gabriel might be the son they had always wanted? Because everyone deserves a chance, Gabriel, and you showed us what kind of person you are when you returned my wallet. But there's more to it, isn't there? Gabriel noticed the tension in the air. You're different with me than with other people. Stephanie approached, touching Gabriel's face delicately. Gabriel, there's a possibility, a chance that you're very special to us. What do you mean? We'll find out together, James intervened. For now, let's focus on your surgery and getting you strong and healthy. That night, while Gabriel slept for the first time in years in a real bed, Stephanie watched him breathe, every feature of his face, every sleeping expression, every movement of his small hands. James, she whispered, I'm sure. He's our son. Stephanie, I feel it in here. She touched her chest. He's our boy. The next morning, they would have the test results. But before that, Stephanie needed to confront her mother about the secrets she had kept for 10 long years. What truth would Mrs. Martha finally reveal? Stephanie arrived at the mansion in the Hamptons with her heart pounding. Her mother's house, built in the 80s, maintained the same imposing air as always. High gates, a well-kept garden, and Mrs. Martha waiting on the porch with her characteristic rigid posture. Mom, Stephanie, come in. The silence between them was heavy as they walked to the living room. Mrs. Martha, at 70, retained the elegance that had always characterized her, but Stephanie noticed something different in her eyes, fear. Mom, I need to know the truth about my son. We've already talked about this, Stephanie. The baby died. It's better to forget. He didn't die, Stephanie exploded. I found him, Mom. He's alive. Mrs. Martha's face paled. She sat down slowly in the armchair, her hands trembling slightly. What are you talking about? Gabriel, a 10-year-old boy, blind, who was abandoned in a landfill. He's my son, isn't he? Stephanie, you're delusional. Stop lying. Stephanie took out her phone and showed her a photo of Gabriel. Look at him, Mom. Look at those eyes. Mrs. Martha looked at the photo and her breath hitched. It was impossible to deny. The same clouded eyes that had haunted her nights for 10 years. Mom, what did you do? The silence stretched for interminable minutes. Mrs. Martha got up and walked to the window, looking at the garden as if she would find the courage to speak there. He was born with problems, Stephanie. Blind. I thought it would be better. Better what? Better for you, for your career, for your future. You abandoned my son because he was born blind." Mrs. Martha turned, tears streaming down her wrinkled face. "You were 22. You were young, beautiful, smart. How are you going to raise a disabled child alone?" "But I wasn't alone, James. James didn't even know you were pregnant. You yourself asked me not to tell anyone." Stephanie remembered. She had discovered the pregnancy at the end of her relationship with James, when they had a fight and broke up temporarily. Afraid of complicating things even more, she asked her mother to keep it a secret until she could talk to him. "But then we got back together, Mom. We got married. We could have raised our son together. With a blind baby." Mrs. Martha wiped her tears. "Stephanie, I saw you crying every night when you found out you were pregnant. You were desperate. Because I was scared, not because I didn't want the baby. I thought I was doing what was best for you. By lying that my son had died. By abandoning him in a landfill as if he were trash." Mrs. Martha collapsed into the armchair, covering her face with her hands. "I thought someone would find him and take care of him. I thought he would be adopted by a family that could handle the disability. And what if no one had found him? He could have died. But someone did find him. You just told me he's alive." Stephanie stood, trembling with anger and disgust. "Mom, you took 10 years with my son away from me. 10 years he spent suffering on the streets, starving, sleeping in the cold. Meanwhile, I cried every night thinking he was dead. Stephanie, do you know what's most ironic?" Stephanie laughed bitterly. "Gabriel is the most polite, honest, and generous child I've ever met. Despite everything he's been through, despite being abandoned by his own grandmother, he grew up with more character than many people who had everything in life." Mrs. Martha looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" "He returned a wallet with $500 even though he had been starving for days. He walked across the entire city to find the owner. That's how Grandma Lourdes raised him." "Who is Grandma Lourdes?" "The woman who actually raised my son. The woman who did the job you should have done." Stephanie walked toward the door but stopped before leaving. "Mom, Gabriel is having surgery to regain his sight. And when he sees for the first time, the first person he's going to see is me, his real mother, not the woman who abandoned him." "Stephanie, wait." "No, I've waited 10 years for this conversation. Now I'm going to make up for lost time with my son." Stephanie left the house, leaving Mrs. Martha alone with the weight of a decade of lies. Outside, she took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. She took out her phone and called James. "James, he's ours. Gabriel is our son. My mother confessed everything." On the other end of the line, James closed his eyes, too emotional to speak. "Let's go get our boy," he finally managed to say. "Let's tell him." But while Stephanie was driving back to the hotel, Mrs. Martha had already made a desperate decision. If the truth had been revealed, she needed to do something before she lost everything. What extreme measure would Mrs. Martha take to protect her secret? James and Stephanie arrived at the hotel with a mixture of anxiety and euphoria. Gabriel was waiting for them in the lobby, wearing his new clothes and clutching the small radio they had bought for him. "Gabriel, we need to talk to you about something very important," James began, his voice choked up. In the room, they sat on the bed next to the boy. Gabriel immediately noticed the tension in the air. "Did something happen? Did you change your minds about helping me?" "No, my love." Stephanie held Gabriel's small hands. "It's the opposite. We discovered something incredible." "Gabriel," James took a deep breath, "there's a great possibility that you are our son." Gabriel became very quiet, processing the information. His hands found Stephanie's face, delicately touching her features. "What do you mean?" 10 years ago I had a baby that I thought had died during childbirth," Stephanie explained, tears flowing freely. "But today I found out my mother lied. She abandoned my baby because he was born blind." "And you think You're the right age. You were born blind. You were abandoned in a landfill. And you have a birthmark just like mine." Gabriel touched his own mark on his arm, then Stephanie's. "But how can we be sure?" "With a DNA test," James explained. "It's a simple test. We just need to collect a little saliva. The results will be ready in a few days." Gabriel remained silent for long minutes. When he finally spoke, his voice was full of emotion. "You want me to be your son?" "With all our hearts," Stephanie replied, hugging Gabriel. "We've always wanted to have children, and if you are our boy, we thought we lost." "It will mean we'll finally be together," James completed. Gabriel hugged them both, crying for the first time since Grandma Lourdes had died. "I've always dreamed of having a real family, but what if the test comes back negative?" "It won't change a thing," James assured him. "You are already our son in our hearts, Gabriel. The DNA will just confirm what we already know." The next morning, they went to a private clinic in Brooklyn to get the DNA test. The process was quick and painless, but Gabriel was nervous. "We'll have the results in 5 days," the technician said. While they waited for the results, they established a routine. Gabriel stayed at the hotel during the day with a caregiver that James had hired and spent afternoons and evenings with the couple. They visited museums with audio guides for the visually impaired, went to the movies with audio descriptions, and bought more Braille books. "Gabriel, have you ever thought about going to school?" Stephanie asked during a dinner. "I always wanted to learn to read properly. Grandma Lourdes taught me some letters, but she didn't know much Braille." "We'll fix that. Regardless of the test results, you're going to a good school." Gabriel smiled, touching Stephanie's face. "Can I call you Mom?" Stephanie couldn't answer. She just hugged him tightly. On the 4th day of waiting, Mrs. Martha showed up at the hotel. She was visibly nervous, with deep circles under her eyes and trembling hands. "I need to talk to you." "Alone?" James was reluctant, but Stephanie insisted. They left Gabriel with the caregiver and went downstairs to talk in the hotel cafe. "Stephanie, I've been thinking a lot about our conversation. Mum, I'm not going to change my mind. Gabriel is my son and I'm going to take care of him." "It's not about that." Mrs. Martha took a deep breath. "It's about the DNA test." "What about the test?" "I already took one, 2 days ago." Mrs. Martha took an envelope from her pocket. "I took a lock of Gabriel's hair when you weren't looking, the first day you came to the house." James snatched the envelope from her hands, opening it quickly. His eyes scanned the paper, widening as he read the result. 99.7% genetic compatibility, he read aloud. "Gabriel is the biological grandson of Martha Smith." Stephanie covered her mouth with her hands, tears of joy streaming down her face. "My son. My son is alive." "Why did you take this test in secret?" James asked, suspicious. Mrs. Martha lowered her eyes, ashamed. "Because if it was confirmed, I would have to admit what I did, and I don't know if I have the courage to look that boy in the eye knowing I abandoned him." "Mom, Gabriel needs to know he has a grandmother. Even if you made a terrible mistake, he deserves to know his whole family." "What if he hates me?" "Gabriel doesn't hate anyone," Stephanie replied. "He's the kindest child you'll ever meet, but you'll have to ask for forgiveness and prove that you've changed." When they returned to the room, Gabriel was waiting anxiously for news. "Gabriel," Stephanie knelt in front of him, "the test confirmed it. You are our son." Gabriel hugged them both so tightly they almost fell off the bed. Between tears and laughter, a family was finally reunited. "And there's one more thing," James said softly. "You have a grandmother." Gabriel turned in the direction of Mrs. Martha, who was standing at the door, trembling. "Grandma?" Mrs. Martha approached slowly, kneeling in front of Gabriel. "Gabriel, I need to ask you for forgiveness for something very serious that I did." Gabriel touched his grandmother's face, feeling her tears. "Grandma, everyone makes mistakes. Grandma Lourdes always said that the important thing is to try to fix them." At that moment, Mrs. Martha understood the magnitude of what she had lost for 10 years, and also the opportunity she had ahead of her to make up for lost time. But the past still held secrets that could shake the newly reunited family once again. The following days were the happiest in Gabriel's life. For the first time, he slept in a real house, the mansion in the Hamptons where James and Stephanie had temporarily moved to be near Mrs. Martha and speed up the process of family reconciliation. Gabriel explored every corner of the house with childlike curiosity. His fingers ran over the textures of the antique furniture, recognized the smells of the kitchen, and memorized every staircase and hallway. "This was your grandfather's library," Stephanie explained, guiding Gabriel through the room full of bookshelves. "He loved history books. Can I touch the books?" "Of course, my love. Now all of this is yours too, Mrs." Martha watched from a distance, her heart tight with remorse. With every interaction between Gabriel and Stephanie, every moment of affection she witnessed, her guilt grew exponentially. In the kitchen, Gabriel helped prepare lunch, his nimble hands quickly learning where each utensil was. "Grandma Martha, can you teach me how to make brownies?" Gabriel asked while stirring a pot of rice. Mrs. Martha stopped cutting vegetables, surprised. You want to learn with me?" "Of course." Grandma Lourdes always said that brownies made with love taste better. That afternoon they made brownies together. Gabriel stirred the pot on the stove, while Mrs. Martha added the ingredients, her voice trembling as she gave instructions. "Now stir slowly, so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan." "Like this, Grandma?" "Perfect, my little grandson. The word grandson came out naturally, and Mrs. Martha was moved when she realized it. Gabriel smiled, happy to have a family member to call Grandma again. But that night, alone in her room, Mrs. Martha was seized by a terrible panic. What if James decided to investigate further? What if he found out exactly how she had abandoned Gabriel? What if they wanted to press criminal charges against her? Monday morning brought Gabriel's pre-op consultation. Dr. Robert was optimistic about the surgery scheduled for the following week. "Gabriel is in excellent health," he announced after the tests. "The surgery has an 85% chance of success." "And how long until he sees completely?" James asked. "The process is gradual. First are shadows and lights, then shapes, until vision normalizes completely. It can take a few months." Gabriel held Stephanie's hand, anxious and hopeful. "Mum, the first thing I want to see when I can see is your face." Stephanie kissed her son's forehead, too emotional to speak. Back at the house, Gabriel was euphoric, telling Mrs. Martha about the surgery preparations. She listened with a forced smile, but inside her desperation grew. "Grandma, when I can see, we'll make brownies and look at the measurements carefully," Gabriel said, hugging her. "We will, my little grandson." That night, after everyone was asleep, Mrs. Martha went down to the kitchen. Her steps were silent on the marble floor as she opened the cabinet where she kept cleaning products. She took a small bottle of rat poison that she used in the garden and looked at it for long minutes. Her hands trembled violently. If Gabriel regained his sight completely, he might start asking questions about his past. Maybe he would want to go back to the places he lived. Maybe he would discover details about how he was abandoned that would incriminate her for good. Mrs. Martha went up to her room and stayed awake all night, the bottle hidden in a dresser drawer. In the morning, she had made a desperate decision. "Gabriel, how about we make a special dessert today?" she suggested during breakfast. "What kind of dessert, Grandma?" "A different kind of brownie, with a special filling." "I'd love to help." Stephanie and James went out to take care of work matters, leaving Gabriel with Mrs. Martha. In the kitchen, she taught her grandson to make gourmet brownies with various fillings. "This one will have a strawberry filling," she explained, setting a pan aside. "And this one here will be a surprise just for you." Gabriel smiled, excited about his grandmother's special attention. Mrs. Martha prepared the treats with trembling hands. In Gabriel's special brownie, she mixed a small amount of the poison. Not enough to kill him, she thought, just to make him sick enough to postpone the surgery indefinitely. "Done," she announced when they finished. "Let's put them in the fridge to cool." "Can I try one now, Grandma?" "No, my little grandson, it's better to wait for them to cool down. The surprise will be ready at dinner time." Gabriel agreed, impatient to try the special surprise his grandmother had prepared for him, but fate had other plans. When Gabriel went to get a drink of water in the afternoon, he accidentally bumped the refrigerator, causing the plates to move. Mrs. Martha didn't notice the change. And when it was time for dinner, she herself would be the one to eat the poisoned brownie. How would a simple accident save Gabriel from an even greater tragedy? Dinner was served when James and Stephanie returned from the office. Gabriel was waiting excitedly in the dining room, wearing a dress shirt Stephanie had bought for him, his hair neatly combed. "How was your day?" Stephanie asked, kissing Gabriel's forehead. "Great. Grandma Martha taught me how to make gourmet brownies. We made some special ones for after dinner." Mrs. Martha entered the room with a tray of brownies, forcing a smile as her eyes avoided Gabriel's. "Gabriel prepared a surprise for all of us," she said, her voice slightly shaky. "Grandma did most of it. I just helped stir." Gabriel smiled proudly. "There are strawberry brownies, dark chocolate, and a special one that Grandma made just for me." During dinner, Gabriel excitedly talked about the preparations for the surgery, about the Braille books he was learning to read, about his plans for when he could see. "Dad, when I can see, I want to see your office properly. I want to see what the rain looks like when it falls." "It's going to be beautiful, son," James replied, moved by the word Dad naturally coming from Gabriel's lips. Mrs. Martha ate little, toying with her food with a fork, watching Gabriel with a mixture of love and despair. "Now for dessert," Gabriel announced when they finished the main course. Mrs. Martha stood up to get the brownies, but Gabriel was faster. "Let me get them, Grandma. I want to make a surprise for everyone." In the kitchen, Gabriel walked to the refrigerator with the confidence of someone who had already memorized every inch of the house. He opened the door and looked for the tray, but something was different. During the afternoon, when he had gone to get water, he had bumped the refrigerator without realizing it. The plates had moved position. What was on the right was now on the left. Gabriel took the tray and returned to the room, placing it in the center of the table. "This one is special," he said, pointing to one of the brownies. "Grandma made it especially for me, but I want to share it with everyone." "No!" Mrs. Martha screamed, getting up abruptly from her chair. Everyone looked at her, surprised by the reaction. "I mean," she tried to compose herself, "that one is just for you, Gabriel. Get another one for us." "But Grandma, there are many just like it." "Let's share." Gabriel took the brownie and offered it to Mrs. Martha. "You try it first, Grandma. You're the one who made it." Mrs. Martha looked at the treat in Gabriel's hand, her own hands trembling violently. It was the poisoned brownie, which was supposed to have been for Gabriel, but because of the confusion in the refrigerator, she didn't know which was which anymore. I don't feel like having dessert right now." "Grandma, are you okay?" Gabriel asked, concerned. "You seem nervous." James and Stephanie also noticed Mrs. Martha's strange behavior. "Mom, what's going on?" "Nothing, I'm just not feeling very well." Gabriel insisted on offering the brownie to his grandmother, approaching her with affection. "Just one bite, Grandma, it'll make you feel better." Cornered, Mrs. Martha took the treat and took a small bite. It was exactly the one she had poisoned. During dessert, Gabriel ate his brownies happily, while Mrs. Martha forced smiles, the bitter taste of remorse stronger than any poison. "Grandma, can we make a different kind of dessert tomorrow?" Gabriel asked, wiping chocolate from his fingers. "Of course, my little grandson," she replied, but her voice was weak. Half an hour later, Mrs. Martha began to feel sick. First it was mild nausea, then intense abdominal pain. "Mom!" Stephanie ran to hold her when she bent over in pain. "What's happening?" "It must be something I ate," Mrs. Martha murmured, but her eyes looked for Gabriel with despair. James called an ambulance immediately. While they waited, Mrs. Martha grabbed Stephanie's hand. "Stephanie, I need to tell you something." "Mom, don't talk now. Save your energy." "No, it's important." Mrs. Martha looked at Gabriel, who was worried at his grandmother's side. "Gabriel, Grandma did a very bad thing." "Grandma, don't say that. You're just sick." "No, my little grandson. I put poison in your brownie." Silence fell over the room like a bomb. James and Stephanie looked at Mrs. Martha in shock. "What do you mean?" Stephanie asked, horrified. "I was scared that you would discover more things about how I abandoned Gabriel. I thought that if he got sick, the surgery would be postponed and I would have time to—" Her voice failed. Gabriel remained silent, slowly processing what he had heard. "Grandma, you tried to poison me." Tears streamed down Mrs. Martha's face. "Forgive me, Gabriel, forgive me, my little grandson. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just wanted to buy some time." The ambulance arrived and took Mrs. Martha to the hospital. On the way, she confessed everything to the paramedics and the police, abandoning Gabriel 10 years ago, lying about his death, and the attempted poisoning. Fortunately, the amount of poison was not lethal, and with a stomach pump and proper medication, Mrs. Martha recovered completely. But the emotional damage was done. The family that had reunited now faced the reality that the person who was supposed to protect Gabriel had tried to harm him again. How would Gabriel, with his infinite kindness, react to his grandmother's betrayal? The hospital was silent when Gabriel, James, and Stephanie arrived to visit Mrs. Martha. It was the second day since the incident, and she was physically recovered but emotionally shattered. Gabriel held his parents' hands as they walked down the hallway. He had spent 2 days processing the revelation and surprised everyone with his reaction. "Mom, Dad, I want to see Grandma Martha." "Gabriel, are you sure?" Stephanie asked. "After what she did, that's exactly why. She must be feeling very bad." In the room, Mrs. Martha was lying in bed, looking out the window. When she saw Gabriel enter, she started to cry. "Gabriel, I don't deserve you coming to see me." Gabriel approached the bed and carefully held his grandmother's hand. "Grandma, are you okay? How can you ask me that after what I did?" "Because Grandma Lourdes taught me that everyone can change, and that holding anger in your heart only hurts yourself." Mrs. Martha held Gabriel's small hand as if it were a lifesaver. "Gabriel, I did terrible things to you. I abandoned you when you were a baby. I lied to your mother and I tried to hurt you again. How can you forgive me? Because you're my grandma, and because I see that you're truly sorry." "I am," Mrs. Martha cried. "I'm so sorry, my little grandson. These 10 years have been hell for me, knowing what I had done." "Then let's start over, Grandma. When I get out of surgery and can see, we'll make brownies together again. But this time only with love." Stephanie and James were moved by their son's capacity for forgiveness. Mrs. Martha kissed Gabriel's hand, promising to be the grandmother he deserved. "Gabriel, are you sure you want to have the surgery tomorrow?" Dr. Robert asked during the final consultation. After everything that's happened, we can postpone it if you need more time. Doctor, I've waited 10 years to see. I don't want to wait another day. On the morning of the surgery, Gabriel woke up early and nervous. It was his big day, the day he might be able to see for the first time. Son, how are you feeling? James asked during breakfast. Scared and excited at the same time. Gabriel smiled. Is that normal? Totally normal. Stephanie hugged him. We'll be here when you wake up. At the hospital, Gabriel was prepared for surgery. The nurses were charmed by his politeness and optimism. Boy, you're so brave, one of them said while applying the pre-anesthesia. Grandma Lourdes always said that courage isn't not being afraid. It's doing what needs to be done, even when you're afraid. Dr. Robert came to say goodbye before Gabriel entered the operating room. Doctor, when I wake up, will I be able to see you? Not immediately, Gabriel. First, you'll see lights and shadows, then the shapes will become clearer. But yes, in a few weeks you'll see me perfectly. And will I be able to see my mom and dad? Yes, you will. And you'll see how beautiful they are on the outside, just like on the inside. The surgery lasted 4 hours. James and Stephanie waited in the waiting room, anxious. Mrs. Martha, who had been discharged the night before, arrived at the hospital with a bouquet of flowers. How is he? She asked, still frail but determined to be present. Still in surgery. It should be over soon. Dr. Robert came out of the operating room with a smile on his face. The surgery was a success, better than I expected. Gabriel has a great chance of recovering his vision almost completely. Can I see him? Stephanie asked. He's still anesthetized, but he'll wake up soon. His eyes are bandaged and will stay that way for a week. Then we'll start removing the bandages gradually. When Gabriel woke up from the anesthesia, the first thing he did was reach for Stephanie's hand. Mom, are you there? I'm here, my love. How are you feeling? A little dizzy, but good. Did everything go well? Everything went well. Dr. Robert said the surgery was perfect. Gabriel smiled, squeezing Stephanie's hand. Mom, in 1 week I'll see your face for the first time, and I can't wait for you to see me smiling with pride. James came closer and kissed his son's forehead. We are so proud of you, Gabriel. So proud. Mrs. Martha approached hesitantly, placing the flowers on the nightstand. Gabriel, I brought you flowers, they're white daisies. Thank you, Grandma. When I can see, these will be the first flowers I'll see. That night, while Gabriel slept peacefully in the hospital, his family made plans for the future. In a week, they would start a new life, together, for real. But what would the magical moment be like when Gabriel saw the world for the first time? A week later, New York Presbyterian Hospital seemed like a party venue. Gabriel was sitting on the bed, anxious for the most anticipated moment of his life, the removal of the bandages. Gabriel, I'm going to start taking the bandages off slowly, Dr. Robert explained. First, you'll only see light, then the shapes will become clearer. Stephanie held one of Gabriel's hands, James the other. Mrs. Martha was in the corner of the room, still hesitant but present. I'm ready, Doctor. Dr. Robert began to carefully unwrap the bandages. Gabriel blinked several times as the first sliver of light hit his eyes. It's so bright, he exclaimed, squeezing his parents' hands. That's normal. Your eyes are getting used to the light after 10 years in the dark. When the last bandage was removed, Gabriel blinked slowly, his pupils adjusting to the brightness of the room. Gabriel, what are you seeing? Dr. Robert asked. Lights, shapes. It's a little blurry, but his voice cracked with emotion. I'm seeing. Gabriel slowly turned his face toward Stephanie. First he saw only an outline, then the features became clearer. The brown hair, the green eyes shining with tears, the most beautiful smile he had ever imagined. Mom. He touched Stephanie's face with one hand, confirming with touch what he saw with his eyes. You're even more beautiful than I imagined. Stephanie couldn't answer, crying with joy as she kissed her son's face. Gabriel looked at James. Tall, dark hair, kind eyes that conveyed all the love he felt. Dad, you look like a lawyer, he joked, making everyone laugh. What do you mean? James asked between tears. Serious, smart, but with a smile that shows you have a good heart. Then Gabriel looked for Mrs. Martha in the corner of the room. She was crying, still keeping her distance. Grandma, come here. Gabriel, I don't know if I deserve it. Grandma, I want to see you. Mrs. Martha approached hesitantly. Gabriel studied her face, wrinkles that told stories of regret, tired eyes but full of love, hands that trembled with emotion. Grandma, you look like my mum. Now I understand where her beauty comes from. Mrs. Martha couldn't contain herself and hugged Gabriel, asking for forgiveness one more time. Gabriel, do you really forgive me? I've already forgiven you, Grandma. Now let's take care of the future. 2 months later, Gabriel was fully adapted to his new life with sight. Enrolled in a private school in Greenwich, he took tutoring classes to make up for the lost years. "Gabriel, how was your first day of school?" Stephanie asked when he got home. "Amazing! I could read the board, participate in class, and make new friends." He hugged his mother, and the teacher said, "I'm very smart." "Of course you are, you're our son." James came home from work to find Gabriel doing homework at the kitchen table under Mrs. Martha's proud supervision. "How's the student doing?" "Dad, I'm learning math. Numbers on paper are different from numbers in your head." That night during dinner, Gabriel made an announcement. "Dad, Mum, I've decided what I want to be when I grow up." "What, son?" "A lawyer, like Dad. But I want to help kids like me who are in difficult situations." James was moved. "You'll be an excellent lawyer, Gabriel." "And Grandma Martha, I was thinking about something. Do you want to help me with a project?" "Of course, my little grandson. What project?" "I want to create a foundation to help blind children on the streets. Can we use your house as the headquarters?" Mrs. Martha didn't hesitate. "The house is yours, Gabriel. We'll make it a place to help other children." 6 months later, the Gabriel Foundation was officially born. Stephanie left her job to dedicate herself full-time to the project, which served visually impaired children in vulnerable situations. "Gabriel, are you sure you want to donate part of your allowance to the foundation?" James asked. "I am, Dad. Grandma Lourdes always said that when you receive a lot of love, you have to share it with those who need it." On the first anniversary of the surgery, Gabriel made a point of visiting all the important places from his previous life. They went to Times Square to find Old Man Joe, who cried when he saw Gabriel seeing. "Boy, you've become a prince. Old Man Joe, you're the one who helped me when I needed it most. I'll never forget." They visited the spot where Gabriel used to beg for alms. Now, instead of a blind, lonely child, there was a well-dressed boy, accompanied by his family, distributing food baskets to homeless people. "Gabriel, wouldn't you rather forget that time?" Stephanie asked. "No, Mom. That time taught me to appreciate every good thing that happens in life, and it taught me that there is always hope." That night, at home, Gabriel looked out the window of his room, watching the lights of New York City twinkling in the distance. "Gabriel," Stephanie appeared at the door. "Can't you sleep?" "Mom, I was thinking about Grandma Lourdes. I think she would be happy seeing how our family turned out." "I'm sure she would, son. You know what? I'm grateful for everything that happened." "How so?" Gabriel turned to his mother, his eyes shining with the wisdom of someone who had known rock bottom and found the light. "If I hadn't lived on the streets, I wouldn't have learned to be honest. If I weren't honest, I wouldn't have returned Dad's wallet. If I hadn't returned the wallet, you would never have found me. And if you hadn't found me, I would never have had a real family." Stephanie hugged Gabriel, understanding that sometimes the most difficult paths lead to the most beautiful destinations. "I love you so much, my son." "I love you too, Mom. And I love our family. Everyone, Dad, Grandma Martha, and even Grandma Lourdes, who is watching over us from heaven." 2 years later, Gabriel was on the school stage, receiving the award for the Best Student of the Year. In the audience, James, Stephanie, and Mrs. Martha applauded emotionally. In his speech, Gabriel said, "I learned that it doesn't matter where we come from or what we've been through. What matters is what we do with the opportunities we're given. Today, I dedicate this award to all the children who are still waiting for their second chance. And I promise that I will spend the rest of my life helping to find those children and giving them what you gave me, a family, hope, and love." When he came down from the stage, Gabriel was received by his parents with a warm hug. "We are so proud of you," James said. "Dad, Mom, thank you for teaching me that honesty always pays off, and that the love of a family can heal any wound." That night at home, Gabriel wrote a letter to Grandma Lourdes, which he kept in a special box. "Grandma Lourdes, you were right. Honesty really was the only wealth no one could take from me, and it was that honesty that brought me home. Thank you for teaching me to be a good person. Now I have a beautiful family, I can see the world, and every day I use your teachings to help other children. You live on in my heart and in every act of kindness I do. With eternal love, your Gabriel." And so, a forgotten wallet on a New York City sidewalk had forever changed the destiny of a family. Gabriel learned that kindness always returns multiplied. James and Stephanie discovered that a parent's love can overcome any obstacle, and Mrs. Martha understood that it's never too late to start over and do good. Years later, when Gabriel graduated from law school and opened his own firm specializing in the defense of vulnerable children, he kept a photo of the wallet that changed his life on the wall, next to a quote from Grandma Lourdes. "Honesty is the only wealth no one can steal from you. And every time a child in a difficult situation entered his office, Gabriel would look at that photo and remember, every person deserves a second chance, every heart has goodness inside, and every family can be built with love no matter how it started. Gabriel's story showed that even in the most difficult situations, there is always a light at the end of the tunnel, and that sometimes the greatest wealth we can have is an honest heart and a family that loves us. The boy who was once abandoned for being blind became the man who dedicated his life to showing the world that true vision is not in the eyes, but in the heart, and that the love of a family can transform any story of abandonment into a beautiful story of reunion.